questions, and Dr. White, I'll address my first question to you, and that is, why would the EPA hide data that they say justifies regulations from the American people, and why should that data be made public? Turn on your, yeah.
Transparency in the way that EPA evaluates science and what data it selects to underlie its decision-making is extremely important. So that information should be made available so that folks can actually go through and evaluate those scientific evaluations. One of the things that we do need to take in consideration as making that data publicly available is that there are adequate protections for confidential business information to ensure that we keep innovation and competitiveness available for the marketplace.
Okay, thank you, Dr. White. And Mr. Holmstead, does the EPA use a biased modeling system to calculate and determine the benefits from its proposed regulations? And if so, why can that not be justified?
Well, thank you for the question. I think, at least for the last few years, EPA has used methodologies that clearly overstate the benefits of their regulations. And I'm happy to submit something that would provide you a bit more detail, but let me just summarize very quickly. Okay. Virtually any air regulation that's been done over the last 8 years is based on the benefits of a single pollutant known as PM 2.5 or fine particles. And people are surprised when they understand this. EPA issues regulation for mercury. EPA issues a standard for ozone. EPA issues a standard for diesel emissions. And yet, when you look at the underlying evaluation, EPA's claim is all of these things are justified because in some fashion EPA predicts that will reduce levels of fine particles in the environment. There's a whole other program for regulating these chemicals. There's a way of evaluating them, and yet the benefits that EPA claims is completely inconsistent with the way they do it in the other program. So again, this is an issue that probably deserves more than a short answer, and I'd be happy to provide that to you. But there's no question that EPA has started to use cost-benefit analysis as a way to promote its regulations rather than a tool that can be used to inform good regulatory decisions.
Okay. Thank you for that response. And yes, we'll take details and we'll make them a part of the record as well. Dr. Belzer, let me ask you about cost-benefit analysis. And why should there be a cost-benefit analysis for all EPA regulations?
Mr. Chairman, when it comes to benefit cost analysis, that would be the appropriate term, by the way, benefit cost analysis. I finished 8 years as Secretary-Treasurer of the Society for Benefit Cost Analysis, and so I am an avid defender and advocate of the practice. And the reason is fairly simple, that it is impossible for decision makers, whether in an agency or on Capitol Hill, to understand what the implications are of actions that are being taken without benefit cost analysis. It can't be done without that. Otherwise, it's based on emotion, it's based on politics, based on cronyism, it's based on other factors. And also, I would say it can't be based on science, because science is the underpinning to the benefits assessment in a benefit cost analysis. So it should be done all the time, and it's also cost effective. It costs relatively little money to do a benefit cost analysis, and it can save an enormous amount of regulatory costs, and it can also dramatically improve the benefits of a regulation. I'm particularly fond of one that I managed when I was at OMB, which the Department of Agriculture was trying to ban a product, and they were going about it all in a way that made no sense scientifically and economically. With help, I was able to change the specification for it, and we were successfully able to ban this product because people were dying from it. Without the analysis, that can't be done. It would have been litigated, and the Department of Agriculture would have lost.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Belzer. And Dr. Holt, my last question for you. The editor-in-chief of your publication, Science, recently said, quote, Dr. Bates raises some serious concerns. After the results of any appropriate investigations, we will consider our options, and those options, quote, could include retracting that paper, end quote. Dr. Bates is a well-respected scientist who was given one of NOAA's highest awards for developing standards for preserving climate data records. Are AAAS and Science committed to taking his allegations seriously and launching a thorough investigation?
I think you're referring to the Carl paper that appeared in Science a couple of years ago, and the blog that appeared over the weekend, this past weekend, by one former scientist, Mr. Bates, Dr. Bates from NOAA. Dr. Bates said in an article published today The issue here is not an issue of tampering with data. He does not, then from it is written, he does not believe that they manipulated the data. All he is doing, quote, is calling out a former colleague for not properly following agency standards. This is not the making of a big scandal. This is an internal dispute between two factions within an agency.
Right. Dr. Holt,
There's nothing in the paper, the Carl paper, that at our current analysis suggests retraction.
Well,
We are always looking at our papers to see whether there is anything
Dr. Holt,
truly erroneous.
my time's up. I encourage you to talk to Dr. Bates because everything I have read that he has said about Carl report suggests to me that NOAA cheated and got caught. They did falsify data to exaggerate global warming. The Carl study cannot be replicated because supposedly the computer crashed, maybe like the computer at the IRS and the EPA. And clearly he suggests that the Carl study violated scientific integrity rules. To me, all that adds up to an investigation and possibly retraction. I just simply ask you to look at it. It may be a lot more serious than you think. Thank you, Dr. Holt. That concludes my questions, and the ranking member, the gentlewoman from Texas, is recognized for her.